Give the speech.
Nobody responded to me.
Oh my God. Oh, I see why there's a lot of people are giving out student awards. I'm like, God, it's really crowded out there. No wonder. That's why I talked so fast. I didn't want those people to be waiting.
Weird seeing you here.
Huh? I need a bottle of water.
Do the step.
Erica, so we came out of closed session at, what did I say, 7:02 p.m. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay? If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would do step for my students.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and reverse our order this evening on the Board of Education recognition, and we're going to begin with our staff recognition.
Yes, I'm very pleased this evening we're recognizing two employees. I think everyone in the room is aware that we have implemented a new software system, Skyward, which involved a tremendous amount of work from last summer, well, actually even preceding that. And there are two people who are central to the success of that, who have worked tirelessly, a lot of overtime hours. It's not been an easy process, but because of their hard work, it's gone really quite well. And anybody who's been through a major kind of implementation like this, either in your own company or in a large organization, knows that there's a large element of stress involved when you're affecting not only every employee, but also all parents and all students. So I'm really pleased that Judith Stevens and John McAtee, our two technology specialists, are here this evening. You've done just a tremendous job, and not only are you going to get recognized, you're getting Christmas off. So the person, we kind of rotate in terms of who recognizes, and we have board member Gina Scaletta Nelson will be presenting the awards to you, and we want to get a picture as well. So
Come on up. Judith, thank you very much for all you do for us in regards to technology. We really appreciate everything, and John, you know I appreciate it because I'm always talking to you.
Thank you
very much for all you
You're
do,
welcome.
and great job on Skyward. I
Thank
can't wait
you.
till the portal opens up for the elementary school.
On the 18th.
Come on.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
well, we have a technology problem. We get no, never mind.
And then we'll move on this evening. We also have the opportunity to recognize some of our students this month.
I am so excited and honored to be recognizing our 8th grade girls conference championship basketball team. And although it's a little bittersweet for me because they're 8th graders and they're going to be moving on, so it's the last time I'll be able to hand out an award like this to them. So I'm really excited and happy for them, and they were just a fantastic group of girls. So the first recognition goes to Alyssa Tegmeyer. The next one is
Alyssa.
Kimberly Tegmeyer. Like that. Madison Babbitt. Anna Philippa.
Mr. Pilk.
Sweetheart. Gabby Badakovich. Nicole Latta. Patty Doyle. Congratulations, honey. You're welcome, sweetheart. Maggie Vacciano. Juliana Petrovic. Not here. Nina Scaramella. Medina Rexepi. Congratulations, sweetheart. Mary Moravec.
Here.
And Ivana Vukanek. Not here. Congratulations, ladies. Alright, I guess Adam squat down here.
Oh, who am I looking at? I don't know. Lots of them.
We'll do a little more.
Stay there. Oh, don't move.
1, 2, 3.
Good? Yeah. All right, we're good. Thanks, ladies.
Congratulations, girls.
Congratulations and thanks for all that you did to represent Pleasantdale. They're all bigger than me.
Look at the height there. Yes.
Oh, what? Okay. It's for the bulletin board.
All right, we're going to move on then to our tax levy hearing. I'm going to declare, I declare the tax levy hearing open at 7:12 p.m.
Motion?
May I have a motion? Okay,
No, I just did it. I'm sorry.
I will make the motion to declare the tax levy hearing open at 7:12 p.m. And we need a second?
I second.
Okay. Voice vote. Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The tax levy hearing is open. Okay.
Okay, Catherine?
All right, thank you. And welcome to the tax levy hearing. First, I'd like to just kind of remind the board and everyone here what a PTEL is. Okay, a PTEL, otherwise known as tax cap, does not cap individual property tax bills, nor does it cap individual property. Okay, instead what it does is actually allows the school district to receive a limited amount, is a cap on how much a taxing district can receive in tax extensions on existing property. And that cap is the lesser of the tax year's CPI of 5%. All right, it also allows the, hold on, before I go on, allows for an additional amount for new construction. And so since we're talking about CPI, I just want to show the historical data for CPI. For tax year 2011, it would be 1.5%. Last year's was 2.7, and if you look at historical data, it has never been more than 5% for the past 10 years. This shows our historical EAV, and the yellow bars are the triennial year. So for 2011, it's the triennial year. Usually for the triennial, you can expect EAV to increase, by quite a huge amount, but next year, for 2011, I really do not know what it would be like. Because as you can see too in the green bars, usually, the year before the triennial, it usually bumps up, but for the last 2 years, we had a decrease in EAV. So there's been decrease for 2 years straight in a row. We have no idea what EAV would be for next year.
Next year's the triennial, you said?
Yes, 2011 is triennial year. This is the history of new property. And last year for 2010, we have about 5.16 million in new EAD, mostly from the village center in Burridge. And new property represents new dollars for district, as I alluded to in the beginning. So why am I talking about CPI, EAD, new growth, and so on? And that's because of the calculation of the limiting tax rate. When we levy, I don't levy on the tax rate. I levy a certain amount. It's dollar amount. But then, when your tax bill comes, it's the tax rate that's most important to everyone. And the tax rate the calculation of the tax rate in simplified form is the previous year's aggregate extension. For Pleasantdale, our aggregate extension last year for 2010 was 9.86 million. CPI, we know it will be 1.5. The two unknown factors are the EAV and the new growth. And that's why we ballooned the levy. Okay? In ballooning the levy, as when I mentioned in October, so that we capture all the dollars that is due to the district and we don't lose any money. And this shows the history of the tax rate. 2010, you'll see a dip. The bottom line, I don't have my clicker or my highlighter, but if you look at the non-cap funds, you notice a decrease. Okay, and that's due to the abatement of that $500,000 of bonds. So with the abatement of bonds, our tax rate went down. All right, overall, our tax rate was 1.54. So, again, I stress, I have no idea what next year would be. But one thing we know for sure is that for the 2011 tax extensions, a 1.5% increase can be expected on local property tax revenue. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Is your opportunity? No? No questions or comments? Go ahead, Gina.
I'm curious, I guess I'm confused. So we tax high, but then we give back. So why would we tax high to begin with? Why wouldn't we just tax at where we should?
We don't tax high. We are limited.
Well, we tax at the top the most we can, right?
We try to get as much extensions as we can.
So you go for the maximum.
Right. Which would be actually a 1.5% because of tax.
That's the most you can do.
It will be. Next year it will be the 1.5% plus whatever percentage it is for new property. So whatever that new property EAV is on the tax rate, that's what we'll get.
And our new property, we're expecting it to be?
The Loyola Center in Burridge. I'm hoping that it will come on, our tax payments.
Did that answer the second half of your question, though? Because it sounded like you had a second half, which was, and then we give back.
Well, we do.
Correct. But the reason, ignore that for 1 second. The reason why you tax at the highest amount is you have to look at this over a long period of time. And the amount that you get this year, so let's say that you had $1 and you tax at 5%, so now you have $1.05. That affects the amount that you can collect from that year forward. So think 15, 20 years out, your decisions today are affecting the amounts that schools, that this school in particular, and boards, can effectively get 20 years out. So if you look at it like, well, why don't we take the amount that we give back and deduct that from the tax percentage levy, which I think is your ultimate question.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
While that mathematically might make sense, 20 years out, that affects the amount that the school can get at that point. So it's better to go after the largest amount that you can, and then ultimately abate some of it back after the fact, than it is to say, let's reduce that, because ultimately, as you've seen in some of our past projections, the numbers can cross 2018, 2019 time period. If they do, and the school needed more money at that point, they'd have to go to referendum to raise the percentage of your tax bill allocated to the school. So that's why you always tax at the highest amount, and you'll find that every municipality on your, in this particular case, Cook County tax bill, will always go for the highest amount.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mirabili.
Well, I just heard a second question.
Well, I mean,
wanted
just
to make sure that
okay.
got-
I was,
that got
and I did
clarified
spend
as
some
well.
time researching it today, and I called Catherine, and I'm just like, I just want to understand this. I mean, it just seems like so many people are struggling that it would be the right thing to do is to not raise it as high as we could. I don't know how that would affect them this year or in or the district in 20 years. It's just hard to predict.
Well, it could be. I mean, it could be
Affecting the district
7
2
years
from
out.
now.
Could be 5 to 7
Anything,
years
yeah.
out. I just used 20 years as an example, but it could be 5 to 7 years out,
Okay.
which could be more immediate.
So I think the point is, once we lose it, in order to recoup it, it would require referendum.
And when you say lose it, I mean we still have a $12.7 million fund balance. Is that what you mean? Like lose all that?
No, lose your ability to collect the future tax.
Okay.
Right. Lose the maximum amount.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? I'm going to move then that the Board of Education declare the levy hearing closed at 7:20 p.m. May I have a second, please?
Second. Go ahead.
Pick one.
Take it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries, and the tax levy hearing is closed. There are two recommendations. The first is that the Board of Education adopts the 2011 tax levy as presented in the public hearing and authorizes the President and Secretary of the Board to sign all appropriate documents. May I have a motion, please?
Motion. Go ahead, Rick. You can have it.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Board of Education adopts the 2011 tax levy as presented in the public hearing and authorizes the President and Secretary of the Board to sign all appropriate documents.
Mrs. Hope?
Yes.
Mr. Mirabili?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Halloran?
Yes.
Mr. Wrigley?
Yes.
Mrs. Tegmeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sedley?
Yes, the ayes have it and the motion carries. We have a second recommendation too, that the Board of Education adopt a resolution to proportionately reduce each fund where the tax levy exceeds the tax cap limitation. May I have a motion, please? I'll move. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Board of Education adopt a resolution to proportionately reduce each fund where the levy exceeds the tax cap limitation.
Mrs. Hope?
Yes.
Mr. Mirabili?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Halloran?
Yes.
Mr. Wrigley?
Yes.
Mrs. Tegmeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sedley?
Yes, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Erica, is this what we have to sign right now? We have to sign this one right now?
We have to sign it right now. No.
No, okay.
No, they can be signed.
Okay, just making sure of that. All right. All right, so we will move on. Additional items to be placed on the agenda. Anyone this evening have anything that they wish to recommend for the agenda? No?
No additional items, but just to bring the board's attention that everyone's been provided with the most recent copy of the Illinois School Code for your leisurely reading.
Open forum? Please.
Martha from Willow Springs. I just want to commend a few teachers that I think have been going above and beyond to really ensure the school's mission of instilling the passionate learning side and empowering them to truly be great people. There are two at the elementary school, and I don't know if all of you know about this, but there was a program in 4th grade high-level math that the teachers really went out of their way to get the kids fired up about. It was called SumDog, and it intertwined technology with math, which every kid loves technology nowadays, and they had this awesome competition where not only were they competing with kids in their own class, but other schools within the state. And it was like a video game, but it was answering math problems in rapid succession. And you would not believe the way these kids took to this. It was a 2-week-long competition, and Pleasantdale, I think, came in second in it, but we're ranked first most of the time. It was awesome. I mean, just speaking for my own son, he had his iPod Touch there,
that he was talking to his friends on. They're all playing the games. Like, they would come over, get all laptops out, and 3 or 4 of them would be playing. And it was just an amazing thing, and it was an awesome way to intertwine that technology with math and really make them become passionate. So I just wanted to commend Mrs. Chris and Mrs. Duvall for thinking of a new way to make the kids love math again. Not that they hate it, but it really made it exciting for them. And then secondly, at the middle school, Mrs. Llewellyn, who I think did an awesome job of really inspiring the kids this year to get involved in donating to help other families in the neighborhood that are needy around this time of year, whether it was toys or clothes or whatever they needed. I know my son personally was astounded that there were families that in this area that really needed help and needed coats and things like that. And you know, we do a lot for our church, but the fact that it was coming through school as well reinforced how one person can make a difference. So I just want to thank those teachers for the extra effort.
Thank you.
Please.
My name is Amy Kittle. I live in Willow Springs, and most of you, I'm sure, have heard of me as of late. I sent an email complaining about some of the issues that are going on at our middle school, about how 2 of the board members and some of the employees of the school were mistreated, I believe, by just not realizing what our children need in this school. As a parent, I think it starts with you guys. I think this school board is obviously 5 against 2. I stated last week, or the last meeting, that bringing back Mr. Wrigley, no offense to you, I have no idea who you are. It's just the fact that the taxpayers wanted change. You did not do it. And it stumbled into more. Parents here want our kids to get the best education possible. I, for one, want the best for my son. As a parent, if I don't stand up for my son and say something, that's where we're failing as a school. And I don't think this school wants the parents' input, at least the middle school. I have a totally different opinion of the elementary school. I brought stuff to the middle school, such as box tops for education. I don't know the lady who's at the desk, but I'll send them the elementary. I'm like, doesn't both the schools want the box tops? I delivered them to the elementary school, and I have been for the last year. Last time I delivered them, Mr. Vandekar noticed. He's like, oh, hi, Amy, or hi, Mrs. Kittle, how's Ellen? You don't get that at this middle school. And I think it starts here because parents as a whole are so unhappy with our school district. We want better for our kids, and you guys have to provide it. Because no one, we voted you in. I think you guys all need to look and just really realize what this school needs. They need technology brought up, just like Mrs. Barker just said. The kids, playing on their iPads a math game, that's what encourages the students to learn better. I'm sorry, as a kid, if the teacher was standing up there talking and going on and on and on, kids tune it out. They need that extra, oomph. And I don't think this school is providing it because it's so concentrating on the Iowa tests. I have a friend who's a teacher. She's a 5th grade teacher at a very affluent school, very high in their Iowa basics. She just moved into 5th grade, asked the other teachers, what do we do to prepare the kids? What do we need? How am I going to do this? The other teachers responded, we do nothing because we teach our kids enough already. That's what this school needs to do. They need to teach our kids enough already. You need the technology. You need, to work together. And this school board doesn't work together. It was obvious from sitting here in the first half hour this board doesn't work together. You guys need to get together, work as one school board for all of our kids, or our school is going to fail. And that is what I truly believe as a parent.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else this evening? Okay. We'll move on then to the consent agenda, which consists of approving special meeting minutes of November 9th, 2011. Approve regular meeting minutes of November 16th, 2011. Approve closed session meeting minutes of November 16th, 2011. Approve payment of November payroll, December warrants. Bill checker, you can start this
Okay,
evening.
I was bill checker. And I had quite a few items that Catherine and I went over together, and she really answered all my questions. One thing I did want to bring to everybody's attention is number 4, the regional taxi. There is a duplicate payment that was made in the amount of $320. It wasn't actually made. It was just recorded twice.
This is where, Lisa?
It's number 4 on the bills.
So what's the total then?
Well, it would be 1,020 minus 320. Okay. And then number 15, I was just wondering if that was $500 of monthly cleaning of custodial uniforms, but actually that is the purchasing of new uniforms, which is within their contract currently. And they did not get new uniforms last year, so this is for new uniforms for them this year. Question. Oh, number 55, life moments regarding the newsletter. I was just curious if the $3,401.21 was all inclusive of setup, actual print production of the letter, Lisa postage, and then her fee, and it's all inclusive, and we do it twice a year. So this was the payment for the first time for this year. Well, then in number 43, it was requesting a breakdown of costs for our legal, which we do have later on in our packets. 61, we had to order 2 additional Spanish workbooks. We need those for teachers. Oh, and then number 71, that fee of $4,967.80 is beginning of the year service on the boilers, entering into the winter months. Number 74, the RICO payments, that covers labor, parts, service agreement. Number 77, we had a background check for a long-term sub. And number 86, that $250 membership renewal is for the entire year. That's not a monthly fee. And then I also had the same question that Karen had regarding the online textbook subscription of the $840.
What number was that?
That's on the payables pre-list.
Good for the bottom.
And that's for math.
Good job.
And that's it. That's it for me.
Anyone else on the bills?
I have a question. Catherine and Mark were kind enough to answer a lot of my questions earlier today. I'm looking at number 84. And it says that we purchased 100 sheets of letterhead at $250 a sheet. I mean, at $250 total, that's $2.50 a sheet. And it kind of got me thinking, that seems like a lot of money for paper. And I know Mark had said it included setup fee. And my brother used to be in the printing business, so I called around and I talked to PostNet. And that guy quoted like $100 total. I talked to Minuteman Chris, and he said it was like $45 for copy. You know, it's $25 to set up, $45 for copies. So I don't understand why we're paying $250 for 100 sheets of paper when we could be paying only like $75. And not only that, but when I was talking to the man at Minuteman, he was very upset, saying that you know, we should be using a vendor in the district.
Hold on. We're checking bills.
But
everything you're saying, the rest of the board is now stuck. We can't comment.
Oh, okay. So I'm just saying that seems like a lot of money. So maybe we should look at a different vendor.
Thank you.
There we go. So, I mean, do you think that's not a lot of money, $250 for 100 sheets of paper?
No, I think it's a lot of money.
Has anyone looked into that, like, what the deal is?
But we did call out.
I did talk to Christy at Minute
Oh,
Man,
did you?
and it wasn't $45. It was, our letterhead has 3 colors in it, so it would be more. We get the 100 sheets. This will last us until the next board election, so it's not really that much. Sometimes when they just copy it, when it goes through the printers, it bleeds. So we have to get something more than just like a Xerox copy of our letterhead. And we've used Minuteman in the past. We've had bad luck with certain things. So Visographic, we've done throughout the years business with them. They have all our things already set up, so we don't have to pay
The setup fees?
the new starting fees, and that's why we've kind of stayed with them. We won't keep ordering the letterhead, but once we get it, then we're good for the next couple of years.
So this will hold us for a while, 100 sheets?
Yeah.
But I thought that there was a $75 setup fee involved in this. Is that something that maybe we could still get waived if you said that we've already paid for setup fees?
Well, there were changes though to the letterhead, but
Oh.
when they start from scratch, it's way more. Then there's your original setup.
$75 setup fee is very standard in the industry. That's what I do. I mean, it's in, even if you do large format billboard printing, or you're doing vehicle wraps, or you're doing, one of these, there's always a setup fee, because somebody in pre-press has to physically sit there, and he has his time that he has to put into it. But $75 is a good rate for setup. I mean, I've seen $125 for setup, and if every time you go back to press, you have to do it.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from this is that
It just seems like a
was
lot.
a charge, but the charge is substantiated. So I mean, it was a service, it was a product that we did go ahead and receive. It's been noted that there is some concern over the cost. It does sound like you did do some research to try to find out the cost. Karen, I don't want to stop.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, because obviously you saw that was my question too. But then, yeah, you're paying double, $572 for 500 brochures.
What kind of brochure is that?
Our district brochures.
Which are tricolored, so it does seem excessive to me, I guess is my point. So I would just, and this is the second time that I questioned a visographic thing. So I don't know if we do any kind of forensic audit or anything with this, or, do we call around next time if, we want? I just think we need to be responsible. It seems like an exorbitant. $2.50 for a sheet of paper. You make a mistake, you just throw out $2.53, right? I mean, that seems silly.
All right, Gina, other things on the bills?
No, I think that was it.
I had one. real
Mark,
quick.
go ahead.
It's not numbered. It is. I'll try to help out here. It's basically the gym, the down payment on the seepage in the middle school gym. Which gym was that? The old or the new?
The middle school.
Understood, but it has 2 gyms in the middle school. Which
The new
gym?
gym.
There was seepage in it?
It's the side of the gym that that has that ground on the back, closer to the 5th grade wing. That part of the gym. So it needs some sealant in there. That's why we need to get that sealed.
Okay, so when you have down payment, what is the total bill? It's not numbered, Gina. It's it should be right there.
I got it, don't
Should be
worry.
right there.
I got it.
I can find out for you. I mean,
Okay. I didn't have this in front of me, so I didn't have a chance to call or ask. but-
Okay.
It's not under warranty then, your gym? I mean, it's not even that old. Or is that gonna warranty that?
Pardon me?
Am I making sense or no?
No, right. Well, I'm wondering if when whoever did the grading did something, because didn't we do outside work after
We did
the
outside
building was
work. We kind of
done?
have to dig, it's partly with the water seeping in, and it depends on what kind of work. But when we asked this company to come out, they say that it just needs some sealant.
Okay.
It's down by where the bleachers are, underneath bleachers in the new gym.
Anything else on the bills? Anything on the consent agenda?
You know what, I missed a typo on when I was going over the minutes. It is November 9th for the special meeting, reports and discussion items. Third sentence should start with his recommendation, not he recommendation. either it should, maybe he recommends that the board consider the services of, or his recommendation is that the board consider.
Do you have a recommendation? Which one do you want it to
My
be?
recommendation would be, he recommends that the board consider.
Eric, are you?
Yeah,
Does that work?
we'll still sign and then I'll make.
Right, and then you just change the.
Okay, so, back with the superintendent committee, that line, board members Karen O'Halloran, Gina Skilla, Nessa were designated as members of the superintendent committee. I thought it was the communication committee. So, and that's how I understood it.
Okay, so modify the minutes to specifically name the committee.
It was called members of the communication committee.
I think that's,
To take out superintendent?
Also, the board discussed minimizing highlights and minutes to be more summative in nature. There was discussion. I felt that that was assuming that we would be videotaped, and we had even discussed that I was okay with that, assuming videotaping would occur. You know, I feel like we're putting out there that, you know, we want to minimize the highlights and be more some in nature. It might be perceived that we want to give less information out when there was discussion about, at the same time, videotaping. So I don't know if you do you understand what did you?
I understood it.
So I had put assuming videotaping would occur because I know I specifically even said that.
Yeah, why would we pare down the minutes if we said that if
It was all going to be discussed in terms of communication committee though. That was all going to be a
Right, it was all part of that. Though.
right.
but what, I think, Karen, what you're getting at is if you read that sentence as a standalone sentence, it could be misconstrued. Is that what I'm gathering
That's
from
my
it?
concern.
Okay.
Or maybe put in that before that, maybe put there was discussion. Well, we talked about
But
possibly videotaping.
I mean, if you read the paragraph, I mean, it says the board discussed minimizing the highlights and minutes to be more limited than later. Alternatives will be reviewed. So it's not like we're going to do that. It doesn't, I don't see where it says, it just says that we discussed that. It didn't say that we're going to do it.
An alternative.
You know what I mean? If it said that we were going to do it, then I would agree
Right.
with what you're saying. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I'm just saying that this doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to occur.
The alternatives will be reviewed at the December board meeting. I would feel better that if you did nature comma, maybe it's a run-on sentence that, and just put a comma, alternatives will be reviewed. So that's all one sentence, so that you know that that's pertaining to that. What alternatives?
Except that I think that the alternatives pertain to everything in the paragraph, in the paragraph. Videotaping, I mean, because videotaping's not in that sentence. Videotaping's in the sentence right prior. So all of that was going to be, I thought these weren't, we never walked out of that communication meeting with actions, other than to set up a superintendent's communication committee.
We know that.
What's that?
We know that because we were there. We understand that.
Right.
But I said I was a little concerned that the perception would be that, you know.
Okay, and I understand that. I'm just saying that,
there's a better way.
the board discussed versus the board acted on are like, you know, literally two different things.
Or even recommended.
Right.
I mean,
We just talked about it.
Discussed
And we
it.
talked about
We discussed it,
videotaping, we
decided.
talked about a number of things.
it wasn't something we wanted to do. Right? There's no.
No, it wasn't something that
That's what
was
it is.
decided upon because then we decided that there'd be,
Right, my point is saying we discussed it doesn't
mean that we're gonna do
imply
something.
in
Right,
one direction
right,
or another.
right.
That you favored it or didn't favor
right.
it.
But if it does make,
Okay.
if it does make, but if it does make you more comfortable, I don't have an issue with it either way. I'm just saying that discussing it doesn't mean that we're going to do it.
Do you have a recommendation, though, Karen, and how you feel it could be rephrased to better communicate?
What?
I said I really don't.
wasn't.
Okay.
Other than like this and other alternatives, leading
that's
into that next sentence, this and other, or
Well, that's-
these and other
That
alternatives.
I like. These
Right.
and other alternatives. Thank you.
Anything else on the consent agenda?
I just had one thing. Kim Barker in the open forum. She would like to seek the board. She would like the board to see volunteers. She also volunteered for the committee, to be on the committee. So maybe we should say that because we don't even mention that she volunteered. She would like the board to seek volunteers who are experts in public relations and include them on the communication committee. And she volunteered for the to help. Did you?
Okay, how do you want that to read, Gina?
She also volunteered to be on the committee.
that'll be good. Okay.
One more change?
Sure.
Or one more request. Going back to the first comment regarding superintendent committee, was the recommendation to remove superintendent and insert communication?
Right.
That wouldn't be my take. My take would be the superintendent communication committee.
No, the word superintendent was never uttered that night.
But in that entire evening, the word superintendent
Never.
was never, okay, none of these, so the finance committee isn't a superintendent committee, none of that.
You know what, Mark? I would
In that
probably-
meeting, Mark, it was never said. It never said superintendent committee that night.
You know, I would probably say, I did not think to look back to our meeting minutes from when we had the reorganization meeting, but I strongly suspect we probably would have named board
Okay.
members and the name of their committee. So I think that this is probably.
That's fine.
I'm comfortable
Okay.
personally with changing it and just saying communication committee. Makes sense to me.
I do want to say thanks for putting the board packet online, Erica. I saw that we had it in our minutes. We're gonna do payables though, because I know we talked about that. And I guess I'm off topic, but
And off
Sorry.
agenda as well.
what?
Yeah,
Off agenda
we
as
gotta
well.
stay
Off agenda.
Stay on task here. Stay on
Sorry.
task. Okay. May I have a motion then, please, that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as revised?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as revised.
Who was the second, Karen?
Me.
Lisa?
Lisa?
Mrs. Hauk?
Yes.
Mr. Miraboli?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
No.
Mrs. O'Halloran?
No.
Mr. Wrigley?
Present.
Mrs. Tegmeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sedlak?
Yes. The ayes have it. The motion would carry. We'll move on then to reports and discussion items. Superintendent's report,
Okay,
review of
first
fees.
item is review of fees. I'm going to ask Kathy just to put up the one slide that's in the packet. Finance Committee met. We reviewed considerable data, historical and present, in terms of our current fee structure for Bright Beginnings and extended day kindergarten. And after reviewing that in long discussion, given that the fee structure has stayed the same now for a 3-year period, that we're recommending a slight adjustment to the fees would be a slight increase. And the board can see up there, we're looking, if you look, it varies a little bit by 2-day, 3-day, and 5-day. You can see in fiscal 09 up there would be the last time there was any increase, so it's remained the same from fiscal year 10, 11, and 12. So our proposed FY13, actually that should be FY12, would be from 1,300 to 1,378. So if you break that down as a daily rate, it's $18.31 per day if you have a child in 2-day preschool now, based on 176 days. And so what we're recommending basically is roughly $1 a day more. And for the 3-day, pretty much a similar. The current per day rate is $18.93, and so we're looking at again a slight increase per day of $20.07. And then the 5-day, the current fee is $3,250 per year, and the daily rate is $18.57, and that is less than $1 a day at $19.50. Extended day kindergarten would be basically the same, from $3,250 to $3,413. So you're going from $18.40 a day to $19.39 a day. And we think this is a prudent thing to do, given that the direct costs in the subsidies that the district provides continue to go up, and this is a modest increase, given that there has not been an increase for a period of years.
I'm sorry, Mike, is there more you wanted to say?
I would certainly welcome either Karen or Mark if you wanted to add anything else as members of the Finance Committee.
I don't, no, we talked about this, we looked at this, we compared it to other districts, other schools, and, you know, it was pretty much a consensus of the Finance Committee to move in this direction.
Mark, how do you pick the other schools to look at?
I'll respond to that.
Oh, I thought you said you
No,
guys did
we,
that.
I said we looked at.
We look at area preschools that we would consider competitors should parents in the area be shopping around.
So like, I mean, because I noticed, like, I know Kensington has a preschool, and Burr Ridge Park District, St. Cletus, Pleasantdale Park, and we always, whenever I see this chart, I always see those same schools. How come we don't compare with the other schools?
Because the board has been used to seeing, you know, these comparisons, and we stick with the same comparisons.
Well, you mentioned Kensington, Burr Ridge Park District, and Pleasantdale Park District.
And St. Cletus?
The two are not, well, okay, but those, the park districts aren't schools.
It's a preschool program, I'm saying.
Understood, understood.
Well, the Grand Avenue's not a school. They rent space at the Highlands, but that's not a school.
These are the ones we.
I'm just curious. I mean, and also it's like, are you comparing like, what does the cost comparison include? Like, does it include snack? I mean, some of these schools I know provide snack for that money. I know we do too. Or like different hours. Some might have 3 hours. Some might have 2.5. I mean, are you comparing apples to apples? That's my question.
I did not compare the hours, no.
Okay.
We looked at the hours of operation of our school, and barring, I think, a half hour on the front end and the back end of that was, you know, that middle period, excluding the period of lunch, were the hours of operation for our school. So, you know, we did not look at someone if they went through 5 or 6 o'clock at night, no.
No, I guess what I mean is you're looking at a 2-day preschool, say like Trinity, okay? And I don't know what they do. But say their preschool for 2 days is an hour at that rate, and ours is 3 hours. Or say theirs is 3 hours and ours is not. My whole question is, are you comparing apples to apples when you're doing these comparisons? That's all.
Catherine, was there something you wanted to share?
No, I mean, when I asked around, I mean, I do ask for days. I didn't compare the hours, but I'm assuming it's relatively the same because it's a preschool program as well. So, you know, what I've been asking was your preschool 2 days, preschool 3 days, and then 5 days. So that's what I've been asking. Okay. And that's what we have been doing for the past, when we did our comparisons, for the past few years.
Now, are you suggesting that if their hours were less than ours, we should actually increase higher?
The fees?
Yeah, because we're in conjunction with them, so we should actually increase it even more. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, you know, I'm just saying we have a comparison chart, okay. And so we always compare these same schools, Trinity, Grand Avenue, and St. John. When there's other schools in the area, I'm just curious to see about this. I mean, my personal feeling on the preschool program has always been the same. That it should be funded by the parents that use it, not by the entire district. So that's all.
So, Gina, if we had that additional information, had other schools here, or had the hours, would having that information help you as a board member make a decision on this matter any differently than today?
We're not deciding on this tonight, are we?
That's what.
Are we?
What I'm asking, though, is, you know, we don't have that information. So, you know, going forward, if there is additional information...
Going forward, I would like to see the additional information. You know, in the future, other schools, I mean, we see the same comparables every time. I don't know. You know, I think it would be a valuable thing to see.
You know, and I know for a fact there was one point in time where, you know, we did look at a variety, but we seemed to hone in on those programs that we felt were the most similar, the most comparable to our programs that we have here. But that was, you know, like Mark said, it's been quite a few years that we've been using these same schools for our comparisons. So,
I mean, what we do is we typically take one that's outside of our one that's outside, and that's the Grand Avenue, and then the, you know, excluding St. Cletus, and we can certainly look at that. Typically, the ones that are, you know, affect many of the residents here in the district. So Trinity, Lutheran, St. John of Cross, and I'd certainly recommend we can look at St. Cletus as well.
My other question I had was on these fees. Okay, so it says like the costs and the revenues. I guess particularly the revenues. Do we get any revenue from the state for this program?
There's some reimbursement for special needs students.
So is that ever included in this chart for revenues? Is if we're getting that revenue in, we're getting a reimbursement in, is that included? Would that be included in here or no?
It's not included in those comparisons because it only pertains to special ed students that you would have to serve anyway. If you
Right,
had a
I know
program
you would
or
have to
not,
serve them. I mean,
you would still serve them, so I think putting that in is somewhat misleading as a revenue source.
all right.
Gina, you don't feel that it would be?
I don't know. I mean, we always have the same revenues, and I mean, revenue is revenue. I mean, I think whether you're getting it in from one source or another, I think it's still revenue. I don't know how much of a chunk of money comes from them. I mean, then I would maybe feel better about spending, losing $399,000 on the program, or, that's the loss, So maybe if we said we got 150,000, and then I might say, well, then it's not so bad. We're not losing so much money there. Does it make sense?
How much we get for our special ed students.
Right.
Our reimbursement.
Is this included in the LADSI program, or is that totally different? Are those LADSI kids included in this, or is that totally different, Mark?
No, that's LADSI.
That's totally different.
Right, that you should separate it or you'll be really confused.
It is separated then. I just want to make
Correct.
sure. Okay.
Oh, so like I thought the 12 kids with the IEPs, they're not LADSI, or they're not
No, there are students.
But are they in?
students, but they would be covered under the LADSI reimbursement, right? Or what we pay them? I'm confused now. Are you saying there's additional kids?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow you.
I was confused. I thought that all the kids with IEPs are included in this, and now what you just said made me think that.
No, I think your question was that we currently house a LADSI program that takes students in from other districts.
But not ours.
Some of ours may be enrolled in there as well.
Oh. And they're not included in here. Then.
Those are exclusively special needs students.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you want to give an idea, though, of the amount that we get reimbursed from the state for on a per-student basis?
I'm not prepared to give an accurate statement on that because it does change from year to year.
Okay.
Can you provide the board with that information in an upcoming packet?
Certainly.
Can you update us on
Certainly.
that? Gina?
Yeah, that'd be good.
At least to have it, and then we'll see as we go forward.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I do have a question. The dollar amounts are different. I'd just like to get a sense of what went into your decisions to come up with some varying amounts, as opposed to just saying, okay, we're just going to do a straight, 4% across the board, or just a little bit as to what went into the Finance Committee's decision on this.
Go ahead.
I just know that we did 5 and then 6%. What we were trying to do, and I might be misquoting because I don't have my notes with me, was that we wanted to try to encourage 5 days. So that was the percentage was 1% less than the other days, the 2, 3, and as far as an increase. So if you figured out a percent increase, the 2 and 3 days went up 6%, and the 5 days went up 5%.
So that was done purposely?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think another consideration is that we looked at the comparisons for the 5-day compared to what other schools are doing, that they tend to discount a 5-day versus a 2 or a 3, so that was another consideration.
Okay.
There was discussion about it, and we didn't want to discourage, we were afraid if we did something too aggressive, we would turn people away. So, I mean, I agree with Gina. I think that we should try to up our fees so that they cover our expenses, but unfortunately it's not going to happen. So that's why I encourage, if it was a smaller percent increase, I think it's justified. And I'm pretty sure St. Cletus was higher than us for the 5 days. So maybe, if you don't mind, Mark, because that is right in the neighborhood, we could see what theirs is. Because I know they had a 5-day program.
Kensington is a 5-day program. I know that.
Just to maybe if we got that in a Friday packet to put us on at ease.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Anything else?
Yeah, so as I look at the comparison of, revenue direct costs and the net, and I go back to 4 years ago, and we've got about a 34% increase over that period of time, from 2009. And then I go back again from 2009 back to 0506, there's a 45% increase. I guess, my question is maybe at a future board meeting, can we look at what's happening from a direct cost standpoint? Because it seems troubling, for us to be able to keep up, we're gonna wring our hands over increasing tuition 5%. In reality, the costs are going up. So I guess I'm kind of wondering what's underneath that. If we could possibly, compare kind of these sheets, and I don't know if we have that information over the course of this year, so we can understand what it is. I mean, is it more folks that, is it more teachers that's driving it? Is it?
Well, there's a couple factors. I can address a couple of the most prominent ones now. One is an increase in special needs students in both preschool and extended day kindergarten. The second thing, and you actually have this in your packet, is the amount of free and reduced, particularly, and if you look actually on the page that it gives for 4 years the IEP subsidies and the free and reduced subsidies.
Right.
So
there's about 93.
Yeah, when you can see in 2008 to 2009 where any IEP student does not pay a fee, so that's increased, that's doubled in 4 years' time. So again, that's dictated by the number of students. So that is really increased. Then basically the same percentage-wise if you look at the free and reduced subsidy. So that went from in 2008, 2009 was 16,000. So currently that's doubled in 4 years to 32,000. So those are the two biggest factors that have upped our direct costs.
But Mark, also to Gina's point though, those who we are subsidizing under free and reduced, that is strictly the district who is subsidizing.
Right.
Whereas those students who have IEPs, there is a revenue source that is offsetting some of those costs.
There is some reimbursement that we get like a year later.
Right.
But we still get it.
But we still get it. Maybe not in that given year, but we still do get it.
I would just be curious
But the
as
point
to what
being
it
is
is.
that that's still, regardless of the amount that we get, it's not, doesn't cover the majority of the costs. I can tell you that, not far from it.
What is it, like $100 a kid or $1,000?
I don't like to advance a figure if I don't have the exact one, so I'll need to. It does change from year to year.
But we definitely increased our number of aides.
Right. Karen and I went through the numbers that night, and Karen, you can correct me anywhere or add in any time. But we went through the numbers that evening, and housing the program in-house and having the district subsidize the dollar figures that you're seeing is far cheaper than what it would cost the district to eliminate the programs still have to administer a program for IEP students. And that was the cost of that, sending them outside the district far exceeded the dollars in cost that you guys are looking at here.
Do you have that though?
Yeah, I'm not questioning insourcing versus outsourcing. I guess all I'm looking at is I'm looking at the trend of the numbers, again, going back 4 years, and I understand that we changed the free and reduced, right, during that period, so that explains about what, 32,000 of it.
Well, you've got a teacher increase annually of let's say 4% for the sake of argument for via the contract, and then depending on the number of students with special needs coming in, you have to increase or decrease on an annual basis your aides.
And that's sort of uncontrollable, right? I mean, so I guess where I'm going is if I'm projecting forward, if we have another 40% increase over the next 4 years, this number, the deficit in terms of direct costs are only going to continue to grow. And the question in my mind is that going to be the trend? Is that going to, is that a reasonable trend to expect, or is there something else at work? That's really it. Because
I don't know if something else is at work, but that has definitely been the trend the last 2 years. The only thing that I could recommend is, again, is Karen and I went through the numbers, because, you know, we went through that in detail, and then we asked and received what it would cost in roundabout estimates if we eliminated the program and, you know, still had to administer a program, even if it's outsourced. Far exceeded. The only thing I could recommend is on an annual basis that the Finance Committee review and then bring forth to the board projections of the coming year, so that you can always keep an eye on things like that.
And I think it probably maxed out. You know, we've got 64 students. I think a couple years ago we had like 39 or 40 something.
Right.
I mean, so the number of students enrolled. So of course, then the teachers and the aides has gone up.
Right.
And certainly, our revenue is not coming near close to cover that.
Right.
So,
but more students should imply more revenue, unless all those students are IEPs.
Yeah,
Right,
right. That's not necessarily a true statement, unless you take in the last half of your statement. More students could be more, right, more students could be more IP. Having more students doesn't necessarily mean that all of them coming in are full-fledged paying families.
No, I just want to be clear on this. So this did not include the separate LADSI preschool program, correct? Mark, is that correct?
No, that program is a designated LADSI program that takes in students from other districts, as well as some of our students who need a special program.
So some of our kids that have IEPs that are in that program are not double counted in this program, correct?
They're not.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, anything else on the fees? So where we left that is, Mark, there's just a couple of pieces of information you will gather for the board.
And I'll put that in a weekly
Put it in a
update,
weekly
and then
update.
this will be in the consent agenda for January.
Okay.
Erica, did you get that? Okay, thanks. Okay, next item, district contracts. Let me just go through these one at a time. Transportation, the good news there is that the board had the foresight in 2010-11 to get the bus company to agree to a 2-year extension that carries us through 2012-2013 at the Consumer Price Index, which I'm sure they may be regretting at 1.5 increase when we look at the cost of fuel. So anyway, at this point, there's something that needs to be done there. Cleaning, I'm recommending that we continue with GCA. They've given us really excellent service, and they're competitive. We've checked other companies through the years, and a big deal there is the security of the building that they're responsible for, and we've never had anything but excellent things to say about them. Food service I want to come back to, because the Finance Committee talked about that at length. Auditing services, the board will recall that we did quite a bit of shopping around a couple of years ago. We did not find any company that provide the services at, for less money. So we'll know if that increase. Catherine, when do we typically hear from Baker Tilly in terms of the subsequent year? It's April? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then last thing is with John Wick, recommending that we continue with them. Particularly, this is going to be an important year with the change in testing. So his services will definitely be essential to the transition, and that is a calendar year by calendar year contract. So if the board accepts my recommendation, that action would need to be taken on January 19th to approve that. Now back to food service. We had a bit of a different interpretation of our outcome of the meeting when we met on this in the Finance Committee. It was my understanding that we would continue. We talked a lot about what we might look for in terms of comparisons, and so what we wanted to do, rather than talk to companies directly, because you get one kind of perspective from them, is that we actually wanted to look at schools that use, there's a couple other providers of the same type. In other words, are prepared meals. We do not have kitchen facilities where we can prepare food on site, so it needs to be brought in. there are only, we checked with the State Board of Education, there are 3 viable providers, okay? So one we use, FSP, and then there are 2 others. So our intention is to actually talk to schools and get the menus that they're using, get the prices, so that we know, just what, that would look like, and do that before we'd make any decision to go out to bid. The caution about going out to bid is that if you do that and the bid process takes place, you're obligated to take the lowest bidder. And with food service, that may not always be a desirable state of affairs. And I can tell you from talking with a lot of districts and things that have happened where they were looking for a change, they were promised a lot. The bid process after the first year, they got the lowest bidder, and the next year either the price goes up or the quality wasn't there. And so you have to really think about this and before you do it. Not that we would not do it if we felt that price-wise or otherwise it was merited, but we wanted to do more research about that before we made a recommendation to the board. And again, the best research that you can do on this is to talk to other schools and know their experiences, know exactly what they're paying, and all of that. So since we only met last week, Wednesday or whatever, we haven't completed all of that because we've got to get the name of the vendors, get the name of the schools, contact all these people. So Karen and I have talked subsequent to the meeting, and it was her understanding that we still may bring a recommendation to the board to go out for bid next year. So what I'm recommending that we do with this is that the Finance Committee meet again in January. We'll have the information then. We can look at it and be more informed as to whether we want to go out for bid, at this point in time, rather than just saying it's off the table entirely. And if my colleagues on the Finance Committee agree to that, we certainly can do that. But we simply didn't have the information, within a week that would, make an informed decision on it.
So we would just put food service contract for review on the January agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Are we comfortable with that? Moving forward with this? Okay. Okay. I do have a question about the contract with John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
I know that items for the next agenda, you have ITBS results. What is the status?
Yes.
And I'm asking that question specifically because of the contract that's down here in John's work.
We received, what we were waiting for was to get the data electronically, and that we received the disk, I think, 2 days ago, and that immediately was advanced to Dr. Wick for analysis. The other thing that we were waiting for is the more comprehensive report to parents, which we also received at the same time. So we do have what we need for, Diane, nice song.
Sorry.
Okay, where was I?
Well, with regards to the ITBS results, is there, obviously not having those results to me seemed that John really wasn't able to fulfill all of the obligations that we're looking for him on an annual basis if we could provide him the data. So are we in a position where we can say that at the conclusion of this year, John will have been able to perform the work that he was contracted to do?
Yes. Typically, we've completed that at an earlier date, but now we were in a position to say that. And then I would add to that is because now, if you recall, one reason we transitioned to this revised version or newest version of ITBS is because we have interim assessments that we are providing to all students receiving remedial services. So for those students, it's an abbreviated test, but it provides us to monitor more frequently. So he has additional work to do to analyze, those results as well.
Okay. All right. Do you feel we'll ever be in a position where we won't need his services?
Possibly. I think we're a year or so away from that. Given the transition, but we would still, need somehow to be able to conduct the analysis. And that's really kind of the board's call in terms of the analysis that we're getting. But the one thing we would like to get to a point in-house is being able to do the profiles that are extremely valuable for individual students, and we definitely are not there at this point because of the transition to form, what's called now the Form E. But over time, yes, it may be a possibility. or to call back his services is another option.
Okay.
How long has he been with us?
At least 6 years, so that was, yeah, I would say around 6 years.
So, you know, with what happened in closed session, are we violating board policy in any way by forwarding this information after what was brought to our attention? Do we need consent to send this information?
No, I
Testing?
don't think so.
As long as names are removed, maybe? Or?
And not even that, because he's...
Is this a
using-
topic on the agenda?
Well, it's for John Wick, because I mean, if we're doing something that's wrong, do we continue doing it? Right? I'm just
Well,
questioning.
you're not approving the contract. I don't know what information you need prior to whenever you're considering approving this. No, my opinion is that there's no violation. He's viewed under his contract as an agent of the district, and agents are allowed on a need-to-know basis to look at that data.
Thank you.
It'd be no different than your school attorney getting information.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay. All right, so again, I want to thank,
Anything else on that then, in the contracts? Okay, Mark, go ahead, please.
I just want to thank Mark and Karen and Catherine for all their time on this. I hope we save the board time and the fact that we spend a lot of time looking over the detailed information on this. Okay, next item is community relations policies. What we'll do again is what I always do on these, is kind of take them one at a time. Leandra and I went through using model policy, and we looked at every single policy that we had to see if any revisions were needed.
Right, and I do think, I mean, that is a point that I would just like to make going forward. For several years, Mark and I have just been looking at the modified policies and then looking at our existing policy and kind of seeing, where might modifications be necessary based upon some of the modifications that have been forwarded by IASB. But what we did this time and what we're hoping to do over the next year as these policies come up is to actually look at each and every policy. So even if there wasn't necessarily a recommendation coming forward, just ensuring that we were just giving every policy a good look at and seeing whether or not there's any changes that need to be made. So for what it's worth. All right, we'll start with 810, Mark.
Yeah, this is an expanded policy. We had a policy that was basically one sentence long regarding community relations, and we thought, particularly with our given model policy and our emphasis on this, that policy could be expanded. So we basically think we should take the new model policy. We did make some minor edits because some things just did not apply to Pleasantdale, and so obviously you can read it. I don't need to explain more, but I think this kind of expands it, gives it more prominence, more guidance.
Comments? Anything?
Okay, 820, just a small change on that. Superintendent, where we had a designee, as it's typically the business manager who is more directly involved with handling that.
That would be the designee, right?
Do we need, wait.
Yep, I'm sorry.
You said the business manager, would that be considered the designee?
In most cases.
But it doesn't mean by having designee there that you are designating a specific person. It could be whomever the superintendent designates. That would be the interpretation.
So such as the business manager, okay. I just want to, thank you.
Go ahead. I think we need to indicate that. I think it needs to be, I think we need a definition of what a designee is.
Now, keep in mind that many of the policies we have do use that terminology.
Is it just assumed that a designee is designated by the superintendent?
That would be my assumption.
So, okay, well, you know what happens when we get
Well, the other thing is if you put a prescriptive list in there, then we're going to have to say such as, and you're going to lead to some, the possibility for someone other than who's on the list anyway, unless we think we know exactly who the designee should be.
Right, and if they're all gone that day, then who's left?
Right.
Well, I just want to make sure that we don't arbitrarily decide, okay, I'm the designee. I've designated myself as the designee.
if I think, I'm under
It's
the
just
interpretation
implied.
that it is the superintendent who designates who that is. Okay. That's good to bring it up.
Okay,
Do you want to insert like or his, hers, or hers, his designees? You know, referring to the superintendent?
Well, someone could refer to as the board president, though. You know, they might misinterpret that.
Well, only because it says superintendent in here, it doesn't say
Yeah.
board president.
Oh, sorry.
So superintendent or his,
Or
hers.
his, her
Superintendent's
designate.
Right.
All right.
So
In
what
this
did we
way,
just
in this
decide?
way, assume is out of there.
Yeah.
We actually put in,
Or
Requires the
superintendent's designee? If we're comfortable with that, then I would say as we continue to modify policy, then we should be consistent.
okay.
So superintendent.
Designee.
Designee or designees?
Designees.
Yeah, it's clumsy language, but it's
Sometimes bad.
takes any guesswork out. Okay, got that. 825, we added some language from model policy we thought was relevant here. We can read it. Any questions on that?
I just had one question. Does this mean that, like, you would not, I don't know, I guess I was looking for an example, just for my own knowledge, but does this mean like the PTA candidate form, candidate statements would no longer be distributed? Is that what that implies?
Well, that's the PTA.
But it's distributed through the school district, so that's what I'm asking. Let's see. Material from candidates and political parties will not be accepted for posting or distribution. They give it to the school and it goes out in the Friday packet, correct?
But it's a form that the PTA asks them to complete,
Oh.
as opposed to accepting.
Okay, so it doesn't include that. That's what
I
I'm
would
just
not
wondering.
think
It's
that
not
it does,
clear to me.
but-
Yeah, some candidates are political parties, whereas this is, the PTA.
And they are actually soliciting those responses.
Okay, so then it doesn't include it. That's why I was not clear on that.
I would not think that it would be, but based upon what we just said, is there another way you could see this phrased that would be clearer? So that would eliminate some of that ambiguity?
Posting distribution accepted, because it says, the way it says except when used as part of the curriculum, and that's certainly not used as part of the curriculum. So that's why I just took it as from candidates. I mean, that's the candidate statement really technically is from the candidates. You know what I mean? I just don't, you can leave it like this, that's fine with me, but I'm just
Except when
curious
used as part
because,
of the
what?
curriculum or when requested? Because we do, it's kind of requested.
Well, the material's not from the candidates directly, the material's from the PTA.
It is, because you're PTA.
Right, so in other
Okay.
words, if the candidate came and said, hey,
Distribute
here's
this.
my flyer, can you
Would
put
say
this
no.
on your bulletin board? The answer would be no.
Okay, so then it would be okay. That's why I just wanted a clarification, that's all. So I don't need anything changed, it was unclear what it meant.
Okay.
Anything else on this one?
830, this has to do with visitors to and conduct on school property. We added additional language we thought made more clear regarding access to facilities. Any questions?
And then it's number 10 as well. Because originally number 10 had the board authorizing portions of the school that would be used, and we couldn't figure out exactly how the board would have the authority to do that one. So we thought administration would make a little bit more sense.
Okay. And then gifts to the district. This was, we thought, vague, being just one sentence. So we added some more procedures on here so people are clear just what the process would be. Any questions?
Yeah, and just to keep in mind, though, too, that we also have the gift ban policy, so we always have to take into consideration that gifts to specific individuals do have to comply with the state law in terms of the gift ban that applies to all public employees, so.
Okay, public feedback. We just updated this to reflect the language that we use. We call them our communication procedures. So we just made that relevant to what's already listed in on the calendar and the directory and all of that. And that is the end of our policies. Okay, next item. So anyway, before I get to the next item, so what we'll do is we'll make those minor modifications, and then we will have this as part of the consent agenda in January. And again, Landra, thank you again for all your time with policy. I know how much you enjoy it.
Right next to the Illinois
School code, right.
Right next to my bedside, let me tell you.
Okay, next item, Communication Committee charge and operating procedures. Landra, can I defer to you on this?
Absolutely, absolutely. I had asked that the board have an opportunity to comment on this. You know, at the meeting in which we had met to talk about the Communication Committee, and then we, you know, subsequently had two board members who volunteered to serve on that committee. Some action took place after that you know, was somewhat questionable. And I know the board, you know, at this point should have been in receipt of my email that said I did not think that it was the intent of the board that this committee be a board committee and function as that, but really the only way to determine that would be to have the board reconvene and discuss it. I can't make a decision on behalf of the board. I know what my thoughts were when we met and we made these committee appointments. And again, I think based upon my email, everybody realizes that I was coming from the position that I really thought this was a superintendent's committee, and that even at the reorganization meeting when we did, you know, some board member appointments, asked for those volunteers to serve on finance committee or curriculum council, strategic planning, any and all of the above, that everything was functioning as a superintendent's committee. So at that point, you know, we kind of put the brakes on and said, let's just stop for a little while before we go any further on this, and perhaps further complicate whether or not we have violated Open Meetings Act, which kind of brings us to where we are today. So Terry, thank you very much for the opinion, you know, in terms of, you know, what had transpired. And at your recommendation, it was, you know, pretty much put everything on hold until we give the board an opportunity to come back and discuss this and ensure that, you know, when we walk away this evening, we all walk away with a common understanding of what is this committee, what is, you know, and how is it going to function. So that's really where I think we are today. Obviously, I've already made my opinion known. You guys know it from the email, as well as what I shared with you tonight. And not necessarily my opinion, but what I honestly thought the board did that night, and that was create a superintendent's committee. I know when we met to talk about communication, there was some even question then as to what is the charge of the communication committee. And Rick, I kind of defer to you because I do believe at one point you might have made a comment that, well, that's what the committee needs to meet and find out, because it's not like we really know for sure. We knew for sure exactly what the charge was of this communication committee. But we did know that whatever it was, they would bring those recommendations back to the board, and it would be an opportunity for the board to then comment. So, you know, it was my understanding that this was a superintendent's committee and should have functioned as a superintendent's committee. So I'm just going to leave it open for the rest of the board to kind of give their, you know, their take on this. Anyone else?
Oh, I guess I'll start anyway. Start everything. I see where you're coming from. You know, that you thought that, but I mean, I just kind of went back to what I heard and what I recall. And so I know that when you are sitting in a meeting, what you think you might hear, what you might have like interpreted, like, I think she meant that. You know, so I kind of went back and viewed the meeting, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So that's like 9 hours of meeting viewing, like, you know, taking notes and stuff. It was never, ever mentioned on the tape that it was a superintendent's committee. In fact, your words were something like, "Okay, so this committee is just made up of board members," and there was an affirmation, and Beth said, so it's just board members on the committee is what Beth said, and so I assumed that it was just a board committee. So I didn't, you know, like realize that it was a superintendent committee. So, you know, I'm just going off of what I heard, what I remember hearing, and then what I went back and viewed. And, you know, I did ask, I did send an email, you know, obviously to you and Mark, and said, you know, maybe everyone could watch the meeting online to see what actually was spoken, and it would be crystal clear. I mean, I don't know if anyone had a chance to do that, but so that was what happened. What I assumed was we're going by what was actually said.
And so we took the charge from that meeting, and truly, I mean, certainly if we were intentionally doing anything in violation, I would have said, Mark, sure, let's meet. We have nothing to hide. We were trying to come up with objectives. We thought we were doing the right thing. You know, I hadn't heard from Mark, you know, 4 weeks after our meeting, or 3.5 weeks later. And, you know, we met right away because I thought that's what we were supposed to do. And so that's the letter I sent back. I'm sorry it was a misunderstanding. Clearly, and I said, we're working on the sides, I'll forward it to you. And then it turned into be this big, you know, mess. And then I did my research, Gina did some research. I would like to recommend that we have the Attorney General's office, I believe they do it for free. They'll come out and discuss the difference between the meetings, the Open Meeting Acts, and so that we never have any question again. As far as like determining what the charge, it was clearly stated to us.
Yeah, come up with objectives was what was told of us.
And we thought that we thought it was tasks for the committee. You know, we were given tasks to perform. That's what we did. As far as open meetings, I myself, I feel like after what I read, what Terry sent out, when we meet in Finance Committee, our intent is to meet and report back to the board. Mark, so we're giving tasks, you know, from the board to come up with, you know, our recommendations to report back to the board. Shouldn't we put that out as a meeting so that we're clear that we're not violating OMA?
Is that a meeting?
I think you're going to have to be cautious because the Attorney General's office and the court cases that have construed what are subcommittees of a public body subject to the Open Meetings Act rely on a variety of factors. Some of those factors include who appoints the members of the committee. If the board appoints it, chances are it's a board committee. Once you say board committee, it's irrelevant how many board members are on it. It's subject to the Open Meetings Act. In contrast, if it's a committee clearly established by the superintendent that may have some board members on there just to provide input, that's not subject to the Open Meetings Act. So the appointment issue is critical.
Terry, if I can interject, and I just kind of want to comment on that route. Okay. First of all, as far as an appointment, we don't make an appointment. I hear what you're saying, and I understand it perfectly. If it were to be a board committee, it's the board president's responsibility to make the appointment. And that we do have defined in policy, and I clearly understand that as a role that the board president plays. As far as what we do when we have reorganization meetings, we typically ask for volunteers. Who would like to serve on? I do not say, you know, Beth, you're going to be on such and such a committee, or Karen. We ask, which board members have an interest in this committee? Now, we started doing that some years ago so that it wouldn't be perceived that the superintendent is handpicking the board members to serve on a committee, and to give those board members who truly have an interest in a certain area to have that opportunity to serve on the committee. So there is not an appointment made by myself. We ask for volunteers, and that is how those appointments, you know, are made. Okay,
Are
so
they phrased as board committees, or is it clear from the get-go that these are
what I find
liaisons
interesting
to the superintendent? Some
is
boards
for
use that
as many
terminology.
years as I have been on this board, and there is, Mark, you've been now here longer, we don't have Patty to refer to. I have never yet had a board committee been created, and we have been following this process for many years, and at least for as many years as I have been board president, we've been orchestrating the reorganization meeting in that exact same way. So it's always been superintendent committees that have resonated from that, always.
But
I
it
can
was
provide
presented as a communication committee amongst the board, that we all discussed it. We're here meeting as a board to discuss a committee, that we're going, the sole intent is to come back and report to the board. We're not, it wasn't
That's what
to,
concerns me.
right, it wasn't to
Yeah, that's what
advise
concerns me.
Mark, it was to come back to the board. It was our charge as the board.
And I don't
We
know
set
if
the
that's true,
charges.
but if that's
Well, we've got
true
the
at
tape,
that
I can show you.
meeting, then
Yeah.
I think
I think
that
there is an
group is subject to the Open
interpretation.
Meetings Act.
Yeah, that it was. So I think that's what we need to clear up. I don't think, as you said, Karen, I really don't think it was anybody's intent to violate anything or to move forward in a way that they didn't feel was appropriate. I really don't think that that was anyone's intent. So I think what we need to do is provide clarification here and say, you know, was it this board's intent to create a board committee? Was it this board's intent to create a superintendent's committee? And even once we flesh that out, going forward, what kind of a committee is this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we need to be very clear. It wasn't clear, that I assure you. I watched the tape. She watched it 3 times. And whether, like you said, our intent was not to violate, I don't think it was the intent of the board to mislead us, to think that we were, you know, something that we weren't. It was the communication committee with the charge to come back to the board.
With objectives.
With objectives. Period and paragraph. How can you misconstrue that? Even if Mark's on that, the intent is to report back to the board. And I think those should all, they would all, to protect ourselves, I think it's better to err on the side of caution and put it out there as a, you know, a public notice. And I don't know that finance committee is any difference. You could say now that that's his subcommittee, but are we really here? Was the purpose to me wasn't so much to advise Mark, it was to come back. The intent was to come back to the board, right?
Well, who established the finance committee? Was it the board that said, let's have a finance
I
committee?
volunteered at a board meeting.
So if
To serve on it, yes.
Right.
Yeah, I can provide a little more history on this. This would be 8 years ago, when the board at that time wanted to expand input from various groups, and so that kind of spawned the strategic planning process. So the board, you know, looked into, you know, all the issues with that, legal and otherwise, and it was, you know, said at that time that it needs to be specifically designated as a superintendent's committee because there are a number of advantages of that. One, some of these committees can be really quite large, and they involve a lot of, even within that structure, some other subcommittees. So it would just, you know, be unwieldy and unfeasible to, you know, formally, you know, post all of those and all of that. I mean, it's just a typical. This is a very typical process that districts use. Since that time, there have been a number of different committees, and it's always been, you know, through time that those recommendations were brought back to the board by the superintendent. And from the strategic plan, from the action teams, from the SEL evaluation committee, from the curriculum council, on and on. I probably can't even remember all the various committees over, you know, that 8 to 9 year period. And that process has never been problematic, ever. And the fact that, you know, there was confusion, I regret that, but the fact that there's never been a board committee in 8 to 9 years, ever. So I just want the board to be aware that this is a system that's worked well. And the other dynamic on there is that when it's a superintendent's committee, sometimes you need to, you're bringing people in and out as experts and so on, that any board committee has people that are kind of stagnantly, that's not the word I want to use, that are put on there, and those are the people who are on there. And for example, the finance committee, when we have to bring people who were advised by our bond counsel, those kind of things, there's a huge advantage to have that as a superintendent's committee. It's worked very well. So I would just caution the board before you transition away from a process that's never been problematic, that's served the board very well, that I do think that is the best way to proceed given our history.
If I can also add to that, and again, this is a comment that I had made in my email, when you look at the district goals going forward, goals which are incorporated as part of Mark's contract because those goals have to be incorporated, and we look at item number 4, which is clarify, enhance, and commit to Pleasantdale community communication. These are Mark's goals, so these are the goals we are holding him accountable for. Second bullet, reestablish communication committee to review current communication procedures.
Right.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't it say superintendent's communication? I mean, as a freshman board member here, I mean, I don't know what 9 years ago or 8 years ago that all committees were superintendent committees. I mean, truly, I did, you know, so it's like I'm going by what I'm learning as we're going and what I'm, You know, so I don't know what transpired 8 or 9 years ago, so I'm going by what I see and what I read and what's in our policy.
Okay. That being said, because we could belabor this forever, but we could belabor this forever and ever. And I want to move past it.
I had no problem posting it.
I'm sorry?
I said I would have no problem posting it and doing a meeting agendas.
Yeah, but that's a different discussion. Because if you go to that, then I would clearly say, gosh, then all 7 of us are on there, and it's not 2. So, ignoring that for a second, unless that's the goal of the board, okay, not myself, not yourself. My question is, you know, would anybody have a problem having this as a superintendent's committee?
No, my assumption that night was that that this would operate as a superintendent.
And it was mine as well, but it very well could be because of my tenure on the board. It's always been that way. I can thoroughly understand any confusion that any one of us might have had, so no problem there. I just want to move past it and say, okay, if this is what it is, does anybody have a problem? If we do have an issue with that and we wish to make it a board, then I would go back to what you said, but then I'd say, gosh, I'm not going to leave it up to 2 people to speak for me. I'm going to say all 7 of us are on there. And now we're all meeting all the time, and we're posting it, and we're collecting minutes and any emails that go through, which we can't have emails. It would then be illegal because it would be private discussions. So that being the case, we either, you know, what was done is done. That's over with.
We need to kind of
looking forward, what kind of committee do we want to have?
So what I'm hearing is that
I would.
You
my opinion, my assumption was that was what it was.
A superintendent's
committee.
committee.
And that would be what I would.
So
I mean, that's what every
forward.
other committee that we've done going forward, I would.
So
being a superintendent committee.
A superintendent committee, we meet and then he presented to the board. Is that what that is?
No,
very much like this
together.
evening. Very much like this evening, where Mark might. That's a combination of 2 words, Mark and Mike. Where Mark might initially address the topic, just like he did this evening, okay, with fees, and then defer back to, you know, in this particular case, Karen and I, to add any additional information. The thought process, you know, the thought process isn't to squelch any idea you might have. Bring them all. Bring 1,000, bring 100 million. I don't care. We'll sit here all night and go through them one by one and then pick and choose which ones we wish to have. So the thought process isn't for that committee to actually squelch any ideas. And if that's your fear, please eliminate it and please call me if you see that happening, because that should not happen. Bring them all, okay? The thought process is just to bring it as a collective entity, and then we can look at them and say, all right, you know, here's because these are annual goals. Those 5 clearly will take 5 years to implement, so we might ignore them. We might start them later on or look at them next year. So the idea isn't to squelch any idea, it's just to collectively get them and then present them.
Can I ask Terry a quick question? So Terry, say this is what happened, and it was Mark's committee, and we took a charge or a task from Mark, and we met, and we filtered all of our information to Mark, which is basically what was going to happen then, except it was squelched. Would that be a violation of OMA? Because we're advising Mark, and we could meet that and discuss the charge?
Well, it depends what Mark, because it is then his committee, wants to have occur with the input from the board members that I'm going to keep calling liaisons, because I think you have to be very careful not to confuse who's volunteering and the purposes they're volunteering versus appointment, what the information is going to be used for. The closer you come to having a group whose purpose is to make recommendations to the board, the fuzzier it's going to get. So, Leander, what you're referred to a little bit earlier, the fact that this is a goal that Mark has this year should be the way you're premising everything. And I assume this came from the board's strategic goals anyway, which you then move over to the superintendent to implement. So if the board's charge to Mark this year is to move forward on a communication plan And I assume he's seeking input from all sorts of sources, and will also seek input from the volunteers from the board that are going to assist him with that feedback. He's basically in charge, so he directs when the meetings are to occur, what kind of input he wants, what kind of tasks need to be done, who should be doing those things, and he will determine what ultimately he's going to be bringing to the board to show that he's working towards the district's strategic goal and his own performance goal.
So then what is the purpose of having other people on the committee then?
I think a lot of boards operate that way. Just because a superintendent really respects feedback from board members. So there's a lot of boards that simply will have board members serve as liaisons to provide feedback in any number of functions. But the person who acts on behalf of whatever his group does, or her group as superintendent, is the one that really brings the ball forward. Whether recommendations ever come back to the board or not is in the hands of the superintendent. And then your role as being accountable, holding the superintendent accountable, is determining whether he fulfilled his performance goals.
In my view, Gina, it would be to expand the ideas. Okay, that in my view, to answer your question specifically, what would be the purpose of it? It would be to expand the ideas, because if it weren't that, then pretty much everything we've been doing. I mean, I don't care just about communication, but anything, finance, whatever. Everything we've been doing for 10 years just continues. So it would be to expand the thoughts and ideas. And that's why I say, in my opinion, it would not be to squelch any thoughts and ideas that you guys have. It would be more to bring them together collectively and present. And at the end of the day, it sounds like that was your intent. Whether it was work to perfection or not, we're here talking about it. And like I said, we could talk forever and ever. I want to move beyond that and say, does anybody have an issue with having it be a superintendent committee? And if it is, does anybody have an issue with restating that tonight and moving on?
But now do we don't restate what our charge is to him, or do we? See, that's where I'm confused, because that's kind of what happened. We had our charges, we had our tasks that we all kind of walked away with. So like you were going to explore the videotaping with Erica. Erica was going to do some, right? Basically how that agenda came out, actually.
Right.
So we're okay with doing that? Or do we just say, Mark, your communication committee, we don't give them ideas or anything, figure out your goals, and then ask us to help?
No, the same way as the finance committee. Basically, I get direction from the board. I set the agenda, which goes out to you and to Mark and to Catherine. The board is copied on that.
Referring to the finance committee, yeah.
Right, yeah, so it operates in the same way. So in the case of the communication committee, where I did prepare an agenda, I sent it to both of you to set a meeting date, and we follow the agenda. We meet together, and at times we may pull in other people depending on what is on the agenda. I would see, for example, Erica being a resource frequently for us, because so much of this would affect her, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's how it would go.
So that's my question, though. So we do that. Okay, we've moved forward, and say Gina and I are going to work on something with your direction. Is that okay to do that? That's where I'm like really concerned. Are we in violation of Open Meetings Act if we have 2 members out of a 4-member board, and we've got 2 of them are board members, and that's a quorum? Would that be a violation?
Hold on one second.
Because
the
the
superintendent's committee only has 2 board members.
Yeah. And I would steer away from the use of committee, I think, in the future as much as you can.
You're saying to not use that word.
Yeah. If the superintendent, if you're directing the superintendent to lead the charge on communications or finance accountability, whatever it is, the superintendent then will seek volunteers from the board to serve as
liaisons. Okay.
You like that word better.
Yeah.
But again, let's go back.
The Attorney General is beginning to investigate this with school districts more and more. So we really want to cross.
But my understanding.
Wait, hold on, Mark, if I can interrupt, because I do want to follow up, because I don't know that you answered Karen's question. Let's say let's say that Karen and Gina are serving as these liaisons to Mark. They meet. If there is...
With his direction.
With his direction. If
Right.
there's something he
I mean,
wants
we
the
have
two
nothing
of
to hide.
them then to meet and discuss, there is no violation of OMA that two board members are then meeting to discuss this under the direction of the
I would find that highly
superintendent.
unlikely that anybody would perceive that as a violation. Number one, you don't have a committee. The concern
I
with
get what you're
committees
saying.
is then you
Okay.
have
Okay.
designated officials, you have majority of quorums.
Right.
Plus, I think you're also protected because it's, if any outsider would be concerned, it's only two, it's not a majority.
It's not a
vote.
majority.
So moving forward, we just have to be a little bit more careful with our terminology. It's not so much our practice. It doesn't sound as if we are
No, but to be clear, the practice is that the superintendent directs the work.
correct, but the way we phrase that and such, we just have to be a little bit more careful going forward.
Yeah.
So,
Especially
Karen
the
and I-
reorganization meeting.
Yeah.
You know, I worry about
how we
structure,
do those.
yeah.
Okay.
In-
Did
Yep,
we
that
follow
helps a
up?
lot.
Mark, I
Yeah.
interrupted
No, I
you.
don't have an issue. What do you call the group? Because we're no
Friends.
longer the
Friends.
finance, we're the
You're
finance
finance
liaisons.
Finance
We're the
friends.
finance liaisons.
The communication.
What did you say?
Friends.
Friends of finance?
I don't know, because I was looking at this Forensic Radlet thing, and it was very interesting. It said committees established by the board are also subject to the OMA, even if there are no board members on the committee. Did
Correct.
you know that? So it's very interesting. So if you say, this is the curriculum council, and we establish that, they could be in violation, even if none of us are on it. So,
But
She's
under
right
the
as far
charge
as
of
the
the
word committee.
superintendent, he can do that, and that's.
he can,
you know,
but if
and-
we do it, I'm just saying.
Right, right. So are we okay now going
better.
forward?
So where are we going with this now? Where are we going forward? Let's move forward.
Renaming it to Friends of Communication,
Communication friends.
right off the bat.
Communication liaisons.
Well, what is that? I mean, what is it? Because we have things like the strategic planning committee.
So you gotta change your name.
We have a core,
Strategic Planning Friends.
But you can,
core team, council, action team, so actually, we've, you know, pretty much used it.
You're no longer the
Range of
finance committee, you're
terminology.
something else.
Friends of Finance.
There you go.
I'm
Financial
fine with
friends.
that.
Finance team, right?
All right, we got it.
all right, so
good. I like it.
we're all under the agreement that this is going to be under the direction of the superintendent. So
Oh, I
guess
have no problem.
I want to
Yeah.
confirm though, our, both Gina and Karen, are we okay with that moving forward? And are you still
So
comfortable
is he gonna tell us
serving
now what
on-
we need to do? Are you gonna tell us what we need to do now, or are you gonna use anything that we've already
Well-
done, or?
Well, we have, you know, I think we have an agenda, right, the agenda that I set up.
Right,
So
start with that.
we start with that, because that's what that's the direction I was given.
Okay, good with that? Yeah. Good with that? Okay, all righty.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay,
And then to just anytime I've been on, it's always been, here's an agenda, what else should be added? So I mean, again, this isn't to squelch anything, it's to actually,
Okay.
Right.
So we can say, like, you left this out, can we add that to it, and,
right, now would be for a discussion.
okay.
All right, midterm review of superintendent and district goals.
okay, I will do this by just taking each goal and going through the bullet points. There's a lot of supporting material here, and I'll go to the extent that people have questions about it, but I wasn't planning on going through every, I think we have like 80 pages or whatever. I'm not going to go through every single one unless the board requests me to do that. First of all, implement Skyward software to begin the 2011-2012 school year. First one, communicate information to parents and students regarding Skyward Family Access. For the calendar. By the way, the calendar is listed on there, and we did meet all those obligations with a couple exceptions, and I'll talk about that. Anyway, so the copies of the communications provided. The elementary parents will be soon getting that same communication with their password. Well, they have their passwords already, but they'll be getting more information on family access. Next bullet, attendance, state reports, all of that was completed. Implement Skyward Family Access to start the year, we did that. Middle school parents report they're adequately supported. There's the survey results, largely they indicated they were, and we had several opportunities for parents to come in and get any additional help that they needed, and that's provided on any day of the week. They can come in and get further assistance. Elementary school parents report they're adequately supported to use Skyward Family Access. That's scheduled. It's on schedule, so we will need to get the information out and then follow up with them, see if there are any issues. Gather and use staff input, feedback about Skyward software, implementation. That's been on by meetings and surveys. The Curriculum Council's met a lot on this. We've collected information from various grade level teams. So, and of course, the surveys are provided as backup information. And then the last bullet there is monitor implementation of Skyward Family Access using feedback and make modifications as needed, and that we have done. And again, I have to point out that the Curriculum Council spends a lot of time on this, identifying issues. John McAtee is on that committee, so I think overall the staff deserves a lot of credit for how well this has gone.
Mark, do you want comments at this point, or do you want to keep going on through all of this?
Whatever you want to do.
It's okay with the board, just like to
Please.
ask a question on this one. Okay. So, based upon where we are at right now, going forward, do we have specific enhancements that we are going to be, considering? Do we have some additional dates going out into the second half of the school year that should be established? This was all, we got up and running, and, here we are, mid-December. What happens now?
The enhancements have been things largely with the report cards, for example.
Right, because I didn't ask about that yet. I'm just...
Yeah, and so what we do those is just like immediately get them done. So, for example, well, I'm going to get to this next,
But just as far as the Skyward, is there anything else going forward in the second half of the year, things we didn't see in the first half of the year that are coming up in the second half of the year, any other dates that we need to be aware of?
no, apart from the elementary family access. And I'm pleased to say, I mean, it's really gone, knock on wood, quite well. So no major things that I can think of right now.
All right, so that's it then, that we know on this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, implement new assessments and report cards. From the get-go, the beginning of the year, the teachers have been implementing the new common assessments in all subjects and all grade levels. The report cards, well, everybody knows we're through our first quarter and trimester, and that went well. Communicate information to parents/students on new assessments and report cards for activities listed on the established calendar. There's just been a ton of communication. I'm not going to go through every single thing we sent out. There were actually more things sent out because we had some clarification on grading practices, that kind of thing. We did additional Q&As, and again, that's all documented. Next one, parents, students report they understand the new assessment outcomes and report card alignment per surveys and conducted according to the established calendar. So just a reminder to the board that we decided to wait with the second survey until the parents actually received the report cards. We were thinking about doing that at progress report time, but I think it was wise to wait, because once the parents and students experience getting the report card, the surveys were much more meaningful to them, and I think they were motivated to give us feedback. Next one, parents, students report that they understand the academic and social skills information reported on the report card per surveys. The board has got copies of those, and largely the feedback was good. Curriculum Council provides updates on implementation of the board at the September, November, January, and May meetings. If you recall, we decided to do this in November simply because it gave us a little more to report on. The next one is scheduled for January, and so the curriculum coordinators will be back again to give you another update on the status of assessments. And then whatever the pleasure of the board is, we have for sure one scheduled in May, but if we need to do anything else, we will do that. Then monitor implementation of common assessments and report cards using staff, parent, student feedback, and make modifications as needed. What I want to make sure I point out to the board this evening is that the Curriculum Council is taking all the common assessments and reviewing them by subject area. So we've done math, language arts, science. On January 10, we'll be doing social studies. And this is a very detailed review. So we take from kindergarten to grade 8. The council goes through those. We take a lot of time. We have the guidelines that we're following, and we make sure that every single assessment follows those guidelines. Lisa, do you want to make any comment on, you've been directly involved in that?
Well, no. I mean, it's a pretty laborious process. I mean, not laborious, but it's a pretty detailed process. I mean, we break down into groups and we each get a stack, and then everybody goes through absolutely every single assessment. And then there's discussion about each grade level, each assessment, and then we compile all the information, and then it goes back to, the respective teams. So, and it takes the greater part of an entire day. But it's a very thorough process. Lots of hands touch it.
Yeah, and I think through that we've learned collectively a lot about good assessment practice. So I do think we're, we started the year out well, but we are revising them as we go. We're looking at what the results show. So a lot of work is going on with that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I assume that each one of those assessments roll up to a district standard, and then the district standard is compared to the state standard, because there's state standard requirements.
And now Common Core, I would add.
Under Common Core, correct. So my question is, we've always touted meets or exceeds state standards, now Common Core. Would we ever be able to, take each one of our internal standards and identify the assessment that may make it exceed what's required by the state?
Yeah, and we're actually, that's a really good question, because with our level 4 questions, one of the intent of that is to, exceed what you'd find on, the traditional standards that you would see, like state standards. And the good news, and in this I was, pleasantly surprised to see, is the Common Core standards emphasize a lot higher order thinking skills. So as we go through these things now, we're going to begin looking at the Common Core standards and make sure that we have these higher order thinking skills that actually exceed what's required.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, continues to go well, and I do think the board is going to be pleasantly not surprised, but when the coordinators present in January. We're going to do, this time we want to do a language arts writing assessment, and you'll see how that's a little bit different and what's involved with it. So, okay. Next one is educate.
Mark, before you go on, please. On the report cards. So we've gone ahead and surveyed, and there are some actionable items as a result of those surveys. So how are we going to monitor changes that are going to come about as a result of that? So, because we did all these surveys, and now what are we doing with the results of that survey? And in terms of
here's what happened. The Curriculum Council reviewed all the surveys from parents that we received, and from that we determined that the one consistent feedback that we were getting was with too much variation on comments at grade level. So what we did is we set up guidelines for comments. So for example, every student will get a comment, all right, a written comment that will not be a canned comment. Now at the elementary school, what we have done, one of the issues was that the space on the report card was actually limited to the extent of the comments. So now we're modifying, John has already done that, the report card format, so it's additional characters can be added, and that way each, it'll be more substantive comments. Then at the middle school, we're actually having each advisory teacher write a comment for every student who is in their advisory. So that's already decided, and the format of the report card again will have to be amended to create a space on there. So that each advisor can put that in. Now, in addition to that, if there's any academic comments that a teacher needs to write, for example, the math teacher or the LA teacher, whatever, there's a space for that as well. So, and again, what did happen that surprised us a little bit on this is that kind of the feedback we got from our parent advisory committee was, that comments, first they shouldn't be canned, but kind of minimize comments. And that was not the feedback that we got when we surveyed all the parents. So we learned something there.
So then again, going forward, Mark, if we're going to be, if that's the one big change from our first round of report cards to our second round, what are we going to do to monitor it after our second round of report cards? Were you planning on, were we planning on doing another survey?
That's the council. We need to talk about that when we meet in January and see just how we want to get feedback on it. At our last meeting, we spent all the time just decided on what we're going to do and move forward with that, and that's as far as we've gotten with it.
Okay.
But we definitely want to get parent feedback on whether we, and I did. There is actually a letter in here I sent out to parents that here's the surveys, here's what we've learned from you, here's what we're doing. So we've already communicated that.
Can you bring to the curriculum council some sort of idea of how to get a better response rate? We have, how many kids in the middle school? Like 400 kids, and we have 50 responses, that's it? That's kind of pathetic. How can we get a better, I don't know. I know we fight with this problem all the time, but how can you really accurately tell anything from a response rate of just 50 out of 400? So, maybe that's something they could look into and work on. Mark, what do you think?
Well, you said when we've struggled with this.
I know, it's like so frustrating. Like 50 people responded to a survey out of 400.
When you survey everybody, if there are issues, you will find them out. The fact that at the middle school, the people were largely quite satisfied with it. So you have to remember, we sent the survey out with the report card. We sent the survey out electronically to every parent, and then we had the surveys available at conferences, and so we still only got 50.
So maybe
there
some
was
of these
3 opportunities for people to fill out the survey. I don't think sending it out yet a 4th time would have got a higher response rate.
And some people could have filled it out 3 times, so maybe we didn't even hear from 50 people. If you have like 2 kids, or maybe you have 4 kids, and you fill out 1 survey for each kid, then, your response rate would probably be even bit less. So I just think there's got to be a way.
Well,
Lisa, at LT, do they have like a code? You have kids at LT. Is there like a code that you type in when you fill out a survey so that they can know that it was recorded?
This is the first year
do you guys,
we've ever had a survey.
don't you guys do surveys at LT?
This is the first year, to the best of my knowledge,
And
that we ever had a survey to fill out at LT that had a code like that. The last survey I remember filling out for them was when they were talking about changing the calendar, and that was just a very general survey.
But do you think the response rate's higher there?
Me when people don't respond.
Right, it's frustrating,
And there's also syndrome, and I've done this so many years that I've kind of seen the ebb and flow of it. There's what I would call survey saturation.
True.
So when you've been given, you just, okay, on my email, there's another Pleasantdale survey. I've already filled out 2 of them this year. If I'm a new parent, I've filled out 3 of them. So if I'm not unsatisfied and I've got the report card, then you'd think, well, okay.
Right.
But if there are issues, you will get them. And I wouldn't, you can't be overly discouraged that you didn't get a huge response rate after sending it out 3 times to each person.
That's a good thing.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
I think the other thing that's different this year versus years past is that we've done surveys. Gosh, when one of the first ones we did was when Rosario Becker was on. So that's what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. 5 years ago. Okay. I think the difference is this year you're saying, okay, you're sending a letter out that says, here's what we read, here's what we heard, and here's what we're changing or modifying, we're doing. That second half was truly never done at the beginning. There was never that feedback going back out where it was like we're responding to the survey. That truly was never done in earlier years. The more you do that, the more people are apt to fill out one in the future, because it's like, okay, this actually means something. They're doing something about it. So the more we do a survey and then respond, and it doesn't mean that we have to take action. The response could be, here's how we're addressing that, or here's why we chose not to do that. I mean, but the more we respond, the more you'll have people willing to fill one out in the future because they see that, hey, it means something.
How about incentivize the response? If you respond, you get a Pleasantdale calendar or a pen, or you know what I mean, like some sort of reason that they would want to respond. People love freebies.
Or you won't get your next report card for your time.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Respond or you.
Right, but that could have the opposite effect because now you're requesting identification, and right now things are coming in unidentified.
That was very tongue-in-cheek.
Right, no, but I mean even to a pen, it's like, okay, in order for me to give you the pen, I have to first know that you responded.
Yeah.
So I now know who you are. That may have a negative effect because some people prefer to stay anonymous.
Right.
And in fact,
so they'll never get the
60
pen.
out of 45, statistically speaking, is actually a very good number. I mean, if you were to administer a random survey, you'd be in the 99% confidence interval, easily. So the question is, so the people that are responding, are you skewed in one way or the other because it's not a random response? Yeah, and you're probably, to Mark's point, skewed to the negative versus to the positive, because the people who are incented to respond are going to be people who have something to gripe about. So I wouldn't be necessarily disheartened by 60 out of 45. That's a pretty good response rate. Not that you couldn't do better, but statistically, you're probably not going to find anything else more from getting a higher response.
60 out of 45, help me understand that.
Sorry.
60 out of 45, we're all sitting here.
480.
Oh, you said 45.
Yeah, you said it a couple times, and I'm going 45. He's really confusing me.
Oh,
And it was
okay.
50. That's what I'm like, what are you talking about?
It sounded like 60 out of 45.
I heard 45 too, and I'm like going 60. Where's he coming up with these numbers?
Because I filled it out 3 times.
Very clear.
Okay, it didn't come out that way, we're telling you.
Well, as long as you understood it. No, that's, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Shall I move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, next one, educate students, parents, staff members on methods to reduce bullying and include cyberbullying with the ultimate goal of reducing bullying-related incidents. We did send out the communication at the beginning of the year, and something that's not on here, but the students have been getting continued information on this. I see Jana back there, she leads our SEL committee, and, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but how many times have we talked to the kids at the middle school about bullying this year? Could you put a number on it?
I would say probably we've had 2 or 3 different, outside of the actual event. They do current events, and I know that at least 2 of the current events that they do in homeroom, which is how we administer SEL at the 7th and 8th grade for 5 through 8. They were concerning incidents in other schools or in the communities that have experience. So, yeah, I would say minimum of 2 or 3 outside of the assemblies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by the way, thanks with your leadership on that. And again, same thing at the elementary. If you saw the most recent newsletter where the students actually wrote their own thing about that. So it's been front and center. We had the parent night. Again, attendance was not good, and we sent out a lot of information. Jim Jordan, I thought, did a very nice job. Again, we wish we had had more people, but he did. The kids really responded well for that. Now, what we're seeing, and this is somewhat just anecdotal this time, but and again, I don't want to jinx this, but in terms of our behavior issues, have really been probably fewer than I've ever seen at this point in the year. And I think the kids are responding to this, the way they're interacting with one another. I do think it's paying off, and I think the parents are supporting us on these efforts. So, I mean, it's a combined thing, but I'm just very proud, that we've had, like the middle school I'm more familiar with because I'm closer over there and just have not experienced any major issues. So it's been just, very good. 4, okay, we talked about that. Do I need to talk any more about this one? We're going to meet. Then number 5.
Well, you might want to change committee on there.
Team.
It says committee, but I mean, do you want to change that for future reference?
We already adopted these as his goals, so.
Okay, I'm just saying, can you modify the goals? It's up to you, but
We can modify the goals.
We'd have to
we
modify
can't
his
do.
contract too, because it's in his contract.
Is it? Well, I mean,
Well, I remember the appendix?
Yeah,
The
but I'm
appendix
just saying
says-
if we're
Understood, thoroughly
gonna be,
understood. I'm
you
just
know,
saying
like
that we'd have to-
cautious.
We'd have to modify the contract too, amend the contract.
trying to be safe. Rather be safe than sorry.
So,
I
just
would,
food for
you know, I'm
thought.
okay with, you know, modifying it if,
I mean, I'm okay with committee, but we just had this big discussion.
yes, we did.
Okay, number 5, clarify and commit to superintendent board operations, roles, responsibilities. Well, the first one, board members, superintendent, are to get a common understanding of operations, roles, responsibilities, and protocols. And we did that in September. In October, we committed to those by, was that the meeting people signed?
Yes, we did.
Their commitment to
Yes,
them?
we did.
Legal counsel, that's been done. The next one, consequences for violating the board's own protocols are determined and understood by all. I mean, you have to tell me. Then the last two, really, I'm not the one really who can say whether that's the case or not. I mean, what does the board think? Individual board members agree and declare they will not take independent actions to criticize or diminish the board as a whole or as individuals. And the next one pertains to staff members. So, again, you have to be your own.
We have to self-monitor ourselves on that.
Okay. The last thing I want to say about this, and just kind of an awareness thing for the board, I've had some board members ask me about legal fees up to this point, and so I included a summary sheet as maybe the last one in there. But if you look at that, for governance issues, which includes board issues that have to do with protocols or whatever, and also Terry's fee for being here, that our expenditure between just those two things is, after today, it'll be over $7,000. Last year, we didn't have any expenditures on legal fees relating to board governance and to or having an attorney here. So that is a change from before, and personally, those legal fees I think isn't money well spent.
Those legal fees are or are not?
Are not if they keep increasing like that.
The board governance or the board meetings? I mean, I think the board meetings have been helpful.
No, I meant that. I'm talking about the governance.
The governance is, right. Well, hopefully this Illinois school code will help, because now we can refer back to that individually.
Okay, well, anyway, the board, you have that. I do think it's an awareness issue, and I'm done.
Any other comments on the superintendent district rules? No? Items for the next agenda: mid-year review of non-tenured teachers and administrators, approved community relations, section 8 board policies, abatement of bonds, curriculum council update, approved annual contract with Dr. John Wick for data analysis and interpretation, ITBS results, declassified selected closed session minutes. I added the food service contract that came out of tonight's meeting. Anything else? Fees?
The approval?
That will be under, we're going to put that under the consent agenda, Mark said?
Mhm.
Okay.
How
Yeah.
about
Communication.
Friends of Communication
Yeah.
Group team? Can we get an
Communication
update?
update. Not committee, just communication.
Okay, there's
To advisory on communication.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, even if because of the holiday,
If we can meet, we've got.
right? If you can meet, great.
Before the
but-
holiday?
No. I'm saying,
Like, are you
I'm
kidding
saying,
me?
I'm saying, like, you know.
Jesus Pete.
I mean, if you guys got nothing going on New Year's Eve, I don't see why you can't get together. So, but no, I mean, because of the holiday.
We've got most of the work done.
No,
We just
because
need
of the
to talk
holiday,
about it.
if you can't get together, great. But if you could, it would be great to have an update in January.
Right, so got that
we
down,
hope.
communication update.
Yeah, and there's one other one to add, is elementary school roof project. I'd like to have Mike Henderson here there's some roof work that needs to be done, and it's going to have to be bid because of the amount will be over the $20,000 threshold.
At the elementary?
Yes.
For item number 1, mid-year review of non-tenured teachers and administrators, can we bring all history pertinent to the non-tenured individuals? So those that are new, obviously there won't be past year's reviews, but those that have been here for a year, we can get last year's, 2 years, we can get the last 2, and 3 years, we can get the last 3. This way we can see past comments and...
Yeah, you're saying not just the numbers.
Right, I don't want to see just a number, I want to see like, okay, let me see the progress.
Right. I would
Concur.
concur with that.
Anything else? No? Okay, open forum?
Mrs. Barker?
I used to say Mrs. Nelson.
I know.
All right.
I like hearing from her.
May I have a motion, please, then, that the board move into closed session? I feel so lost without that. To consider information regarding matters relating to individual students.
You can take a break?
Yeah, we got to do it first. I will.
You motion? May I have a second, please?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board move into closed session to consider information regarding matters relating to individual students. And we will be doing that at 9:20 p.m.
Oh, Mrs. Houck?
Yes.
Mr. Moravli?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Halloran? Yes. Mr. Wrigley?
Yes.
Mrs. Tegmeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sedlak?
Yes. Ayes have it, motion carries. The board will move into closed session after a short recess.
I'm pulling this apart already. Am I not supposed to be doing it?
Advisory on communication. Advisory on finance. Advisory on...
I want friends to find.
Would you? What do you think of the word advisory as a way to rephrase it?
It would be fun. That would be fun.
What do you think of that?
What's that?
Instead of calling it communication, what about advisory on
had a list of all these girls
advisory
that received the award?
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
You know what? I can get it to her. Can I get her a list of the girls that were on the team? Or can we provide that to her? I don't recall them all off the top of my head now.
I think we might want to check with the parents
Okay.
before we do that.
Okay. Is that something you would do, or I could contact them?
No, we would do that.
Okay.
Okay, I was just sending a picture to my editor, so I could just say the team for now, and then if we get the names.
Yeah, 8th grade, yeah, because some parents sign a thing where they don't want the picture of the name and all that, that's why.
Okay.
If we would known ahead of time, we would have asked them.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
Now, what's your name, by the way? Kathy, nice to meet you. Thank you for being here this evening. So how about if we try to get that to you, can't guarantee we'll be able to reach all the parents within the next day, and tomorrow's our last day. But the picture, and just put,
No, I wasn't.
I would suggest doing it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, you weren't here.
And are you
That's just where you were here.
No, no, my daughters are on the team. I just was the board member that passed them out. So, and my daughters are both on the team, so that's why I kind of got them passed out.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so
Did she get a picture?
know everybody really well.
Oh, just because they're my kids' friends. No, I am not the coach. I know nothing about. My daughters do not get their skills from me, I'll tell you that much.
You can put the picture, just say championship girls 8th grade volleyball team. I think that's easy. I mean, basketball. That was a good point, because if they don't take the championship, so that way you wouldn't have to wait, because I don't know if the parents are on vacation or whatever, I can't get a hold of them, and I don't want to put the name if they've signed off a waiver to not allow that. You understand where we're coming from?
And I didn't know.
And the meeting, the communications committee,
I didn't know.
was there a meeting that wasn't noticed, and
It
the
is,
concern
it's a
came from?
really
Yes.
confusing issue for every board.
So when,
But I do think the training is
I don't
very
know.
good on that.
Okay. So the group met and it wasn't.
I did it over the weekend, and
Yes.
I even talked to them, and they said they'd come in and do it here, you know.
gonna go into that, but I want to.
Right, that was the concern.
That's good.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well,
If you were to, just for clarification, it wasn't the group, it was certain members of the group.
Oh, okay.
So that was where the confusion came.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the then just to clarify too, that was the 8th grade girls basketball conference champions.
I was noticing it's a pretty good height on these girls.
I know, they were all taller than me. I'm like, why am I scooching down in the front?